What do people say in their final minutes? When everything goes quiet, when there's nothing left to pretend, when nothing needs to be hidden anymore. Palliative nurses and end-of-life caregivers speak of words they will never forget. Declarations of love, confessions, promises, and sometimes things that cannot be explained. In this episode, we share real stories, real final words from people who are no longer with us, but who left something behind. Many people carry words with them all their life, words they never speak out loud, out of fear, pride, or shame. But when that final moment comes, when everything grows still and no more masks are needed, those words often surface. Quiet, shaky, but clear. A nurse spoke of an old man who had been silent for almost a week. He seemed absent, almost gone. But then, in a sudden moment of clarity, he opened his eyes, took her hand and said, "I never told my daughter I loved her. I thought she knew. But now I'm afraid. Maybe she never felt it. That's all." Then he closed his eyes, forever. And those last words stayed with the nurse, and maybe somewhere, in the soul of his daughter too. Again and again, caregivers tell of such moments. Confessions, apologies, long-suppressed truths. A woman in her 70s said, "I wanted to be a singer, but I never dared." There was no drama in her voice, just a touch of regret, maybe also the quiet hope that someone would still hear her story. There are final words that feel like they don't come from this world anymore, as if someone is speaking not just to us, but to something we cannot see. Many caregivers report moments where dying patients suddenly see someone who has already passed. They smile, lift their hand, and say things like, "There you are," or "I'll be right there." One palliative nurse told of a woman who had lain in delirium for days, barely responsive. Suddenly she turned her head toward the window, opened her eyes, and whispered, "Mama." Then she laughed, not loudly, just a warm, childlike smile. "You're beautiful," she said, and exhaled. Others speak of the light, not harsh or blinding, but soft, calm, enveloping. "There's so much light, and it doesn't hurt," said one man shortly before his last breath. Another said, "It's open. I have to go. They're already waiting." These are sentences no one can prove, but no one forgets. Words spoken between this world and the next. Some last words are so simple, so quiet, and yet they change everything. Not loud, not dramatic, just a short sentence, and still, it burns itself into the hearts of those left behind, because it's exactly what they had longed to hear all their life. A young woman shared that her father, long ill, often emotionally distant, took her hand shortly before his death and said, "You are my greatest pride." She didn't cry right away. She said she just felt peace, because she had always hoped he felt that way. Another man simply said, "I had a good life, nothing more." But his daughter, who was sitting beside him, later said, "That was the greatest gift, to know he was at peace." Many people at the end have a deep sense of the right moment. Some fight for days, until a loved one arrives, and only then do they let go. Others say it calmly, "I'm going now." No drama, no pain, just certainty. One nurse shared the story of an old woman who had been weak for weeks, but stable. One morning, she looked at the nurse, smiled, and said, "Today is a good day to die." Then she closed her eyes and left. Another man held his son's hand, looked him deeply in the eyes, and whispered, "You've got this, I'm ready." Then he turned his head as if following someone, and his heart stopped. Many people die thinking of those they loved, or still love. These final words aren't lost. They become memories that live on inside us for a lifetime. One woman, moments before her last breath, called out, "Walter, I'll be right there." Her husband had died 10 years earlier, but for her, he was right there in that moment. An elderly man who had left his wife decades ago asked the nurse for a pen. On a small piece of paper, he wrote just 4 words, "I am so sorry." Then he put the pen down, leaned back, and closed his eyes. A terminally ill child quietly said to his mother, "Thank you for loving me." She held him close, cried, and knew this sentence would stay with her for the rest of her life. The death of a child is the most painful thing a family can go through. And yet, it's often children's words that teach us more about life than an entire adult lifetime ever could. A 7-year-old boy with terminal cancer whispered to his mother, "Don't cry, Mama, you'll find me in the stars." Then he asked for the light to be left on. "I'm not afraid. I just want you to still see me." A 5-year-old girl said just before falling asleep, "Tell Daddy I'll visit him in his dream." She said it with a smile. And the next day, she was gone. These words are heavy, but they remain. And sometimes, they even bring hope back into the darkness. There are last words that feel like a glimpse behind the curtain, as if the dying are seeing something hidden from the rest of us. Caregivers often report that just before death, people suddenly become very clear and describe things no one else can perceive. A man in a nursing home, deeply demented, hadn't spoken in weeks, but shortly before his death, he sat up, pointed to the corner of the room and said, "Why are you all here?" Then he lay back down and was silent. A woman dying alone suddenly smiled and said, "It's so beautiful. I'm not alone anymore." Her last words were, "Everything is okay." What she saw, we don't know, but maybe now she does. In a hospice in Kyoto, a nurse told of an old man who hadn't spoken about his daughter in years. She had died in a car crash when she was just 17. He never spoke of her, not to his wife, not to friends, not even to himself. People said he had stopped existing over her loss. But on the night before his death, after days of complete silence, he suddenly sat up in bed, looked at the ceiling, and whispered, "Yuki, wait, I'm coming." Then he began to cry, for the first time in decades. The nurse said he smiled for a long time, as if she was truly there in front of him. His last words were, "I never forgot you. You were my heart." He fell asleep and passed away that night. The nurse later wrote that this moment showed her how long love can last, even beyond death, and that some final words don't need to be loud to last forever. Final words don't have to be grand. Often it's the smallest ones that leave the deepest mark inside us. Maybe final words aren't for those who leave, but for those who stay. They are quiet reminders of what really matters: truth, love, forgiveness, and that it's never too late to say what has remained unspoken for too long. Because in the end, what matters isn't how loud we lived, but what remains when all grows silent. If these stories touch something inside you, tell us in the comments. What would your final sentence be if you could only say one more thing? Or, what words would you still want to say while you still can? Subscribe to Zeitgeist if you don't want to miss any more of these true quiet stories, and share this video with someone who might need to hear exactly this today. We'll see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. right here at Zeitgeist.